All right, so here's how this free masterclass is going to go tonight, or workshop this time. So welcome. Thank you guys for coming and showing up. And if you're watching the free recording, then I'm glad that you signed up and that you have access to this as well. Get comfy, sit back, relax, pick your favorite chair, your favorite drink, grab pen and paper, and we'll get started. So before we start talking, I thought that it would be really nice, since the topic of this conversation tonight is our nervous system, as well as kind of understanding how healing is turned on in our body when we are relaxed and at ease. We're going to begin this session tonight with a minute or two of just taking some nice deep belly breaths. So get comfortable in your chair. You can turn your camera off if that would make you more comfortable, and close down the eyes. Try to have both feet planted. So if you have a leg crossed, try to even out those knees and those legs. Relax your belly, relax the shoulders down the back, and relax your face. When you breathe in, let your belly expand and imagine filling with breath from the bottom to the top. Fill your belly, then your ribs, then your chest. Pause at the top of your breath. And when you exhale, let that breath leave your chest, then your ribs, then your belly. Exhale from the top to the bottom. Do that again. Inhale into your belly, let your belly expand, then your ribs, then your chest. Close off the chest, then the ribs, then the belly when you breathe out. And then keeping that going, count your inhales to about 4 seconds. And count your exhales out to 5. Feel the shoulders soften a little more. And count your breaths 3 or 4 more times here. Go ahead and blink the eyes open. And maybe you can feel a little bit of a shift in your chemistry. Maybe you can feel that your mind is slowed down a little bit, or that your body feels calmer. This is what we're going to talk about tonight. Kind of the science behind getting your body into a state of ease, because that's where healing happens. And if we're looking for things like hormonal balance or weight loss or eliminating symptoms that plague us throughout our week, whether it's digestive symptoms or inflammation in the joints, whatever it is, whatever it may be, the body is always trying to come back into a state of balance. But in order to be in a state of healing so that the body can come back into balance, the body has to be relaxed. So that's the topic. So I've kind of broken this up into 4 parts. Feel free to write these down if you want, just so that you can see on paper with your notes the organization of this workshop. But first, I'm going to answer the question, what is your nervous system? So that's part 1. Then I am going to answer the question, how does your nervous system relate to your hormones? And then I'm going to answer the question, what other factors cause stress that keep the body in a state of low-level inflammation and fight or flight specifically? And then the last question I'll answer is, what is a somatic practice and how does it rewire or heal trauma? And somatic is spelled S-O-M-A-T-I-C, and we're going to get into that a bit tonight. So starting with, what is your nervous system? What is it? So your nervous system is the part of your body that's going to determine if you're feeling nervous or scared or afraid for your life, or if you're relaxed and at ease. It's like it's your body's safety signal that your body will send to your brain. And your brain and your body are always trying to be on the same page. That's kind of where this starts to get interesting and how we can start to understand this mind-body connection. Your nervous system is kind of like the brain in the body. And then as far as the brain and the body always trying to get on the same page, let's dig into that a little bit. So you can think about anxiety. When you have anxiety or when you have a fear, a really good example that everybody can relate to is, let's just say you have a close call in traffic and you almost get in a wreck and you feel so scared. It goes into your body almost immediately. It's first, obviously, your brain recognizes, I could have died. I got really close to that car, but then almost immediately you have physical reactions. You have a physical, like your body gets on board with the brain, whether that's with nausea or the body temperature changing or shaking or crying or maybe feeling like you want to throw up. This is all the body, the nervous system, getting on the same page as what you're thinking and knowing to be true in your brain. Same thing happens with anxiety that maybe isn't as rational as, let's say, a close call in traffic. Let's say you're triggered by a family member that says something that reminds you of your past, and you're not actually in any imminent danger. There's no actual threat to your life, but still you might feel a physical reaction in your body once you start stewing on that thing that that family member said and how it bothered you. You might feel hot, your heart rate might go up a little bit, you might breathe more heavily. And so again, this is the body getting on the same page as the brain. The mind and the body are connected in this way. It's a very intelligent design. And so we know that certain thoughts and certain ideas in our head can create a physical reaction in the body. And so what I'm going to be talking about tonight is how you can flip that and you can create a certain reality or a certain circumstance within the physical body and the breath. And then your mind will get on board with it in the same exact way as your body gets on board with your mind. And so, for example, just totally obvious right here, if you take really deep, slow breaths, like we did when we started this talk tonight, that is a signal to your nervous system that you're safe. Because if you're running for your life from a tiger or you're actually in danger, you're not going to be taking deep belly breaths. The times when you naturally breathe slowly and deeply are in times of relaxation, times of ease, and when things are safe. So when you choose to take deep belly breaths, it speaks to your mind from your body that you're safe and that there's no danger, there's no threat. So that's kind of what your nervous system is. But I want to share a resource with you here. So I'm going to share my screen and come over here. And we're going to talk, I'm going to talk just a little bit. Don't try to read all of this right now because it's a bunch, and I'm going to read a little bit of it to you. If you want to know, this chapter, this page right here is from the book, The Slow Down Diet by, what's his last name? By Marc David. Marc David, M-A-R-C is how you spell his first name. His last name is David. So this is just a small example of the nervous system and how it relates to your digestion. So up here, oops, you'll see that you have a parasympathetic and a sympathetic nervous system. So when you are in a state of fight or flight, this is your sympathetic nervous system. When you are in a state of relaxation and ease, and your stress response is turned off, this is your parasympathetic nervous system. So at any given moment, your body is going to be somewhere on a range of rest and repair or fight or flight. We've all heard of fight or flight. We all kind of understand at some degree what that means. Like when we're really triggered or really afraid or something happens, we get the urge to run for our lives or to fight for our lives. And that's a survival mechanism that our bodies have to help us survive. We also, when we're not in a state of fight or flight, then we are in a state of rest and digest or rest and repair. So if you want to write that down, parasympathetic nervous system means digestion is on, you are in a state of rest, repair. And the sympathetic nervous system, or the fight or flight mode, digestion is off, and you are in a state of stress. So I want to read this little bit right here to you to kind of help understand that. So when you're in a state of fight or flight, this means that the body is going to prioritize survival, meaning all of your energy is going to be diverted into your limbs and into your senses so that you can survive. And it's not so important to be digesting food. So digestion turns off for that reason. So right here in the book, he says the key to understanding the profound link between metabolism and stress in the central nervous system is the central nervous system. So the portion of the central nervous system, or CNS, that exerts the greatest influence on gastrointestinal function is called the autonomic nervous system. This aspect of the nervous system is responsible for getting your stomach turning, getting the enzymatic secretion in the digestive process flowing, and keeping the dynamic process of nutrient absorption into the bloodstream on the move. The autonomic nervous system also tells your body when not to be digesting, such as when there's no food in your belly or when you're in a state of fight or flight. So I'm not going to read any more from there. That gives you a very basic understanding that digestion slows down or turns off when you are in a state of fight or flight. Now I want to come over and look at this resource. So this picture here is actually a picture of the nerve, of the vagus nerve. It's always kind of weird to zoom in here, but zoom in, see if we can get close to it. So the vagus nerve is literally like your brain in your body. This is the nervous system. It's a system of nerves that comes down from the brain and connects to your organs and your muscles and your tissues so that you can feel sensation in your body. And it's so interesting because you can see that these two sides of the nervous system come down through the spine, and then hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of nerve endings branch off of that vagus nerve to be your connection between the brain and the body. And they're starting to call the belly the new brain in the gut, and you can see why when you look at how many nerve endings are down there. So just to look a little bit more into the vagus nerve, or the nervous system. With the nervous system, we talk about the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is this nerve that comes down your spine, and you have vagal tone based on how stressed or how calm of a person you are in general. So just to back up a little bit, in the first 7 years of a child's life, their nervous system is malleable or shapeable, or it can be formed, but it is not yet set. And it's those experiences in the first 7 years, the experiences, the traumas, the relationships, the caregiving is kind of what sets you up for the nervous system that you're going to deal with for the rest of your life. Kind of meaning that you become hardwired in the first 7 to 10 years of your life. That doesn't mean that things can't change and that habits can't change or hardwiring stops after that point, but it just means that a huge percentage of the way that you operate, where your fears come from, your triggers, why you procrastinate, all kinds of little things like that are coming and stemming from the way that your nervous system was programmed in those first 7 years. And then moving forward into the rest of your life, I'm actually going to stop sharing for just a moment, and we'll go back over to that here in a minute. So moving forward into the rest of your life, you then have vagal tone, it's called. It's how toned your vagus nerve is. So we think about muscles and our muscles being like toned or not. Obviously, when they're not toned, they're more soft. And you have less control over them. And when they are toned, you have more control. You can choose when to turn those things on or off. So your vagus nerve becomes toned based on how calm or stressed you are as an individual. Now, vagal tone, that's something that we're going to go back over to the handout and read about. But you can think about it like a carburetor on an old car. So here's a fun analogy. If you know anything about older cars, then you know that the carburetor could be adjusted manually with a screwdriver. So that's kind of like the idle in a car. When you listen to a car and it's running, and maybe it sounds like it's like revving up, like it sounds like someone is stepping on the gas. It's like really revved up. So that carburetor needs to be turned down. Or sometimes you might hear a car that you started up and it's like sputtering and it sounds like it's going to die, or it might stop at any moment because the idle is so low. You can think about vagal tone like your own carburetor, your own idle. And so some people have lower vagal tone, meaning they have high anxiety and they're always like up here, like me, I'm running too hard, like I'm way revved up and someone's stepping on my gas all the time. Or some people who have that high vagal tone. So high vagal tone, you'd be in the middle. You'd be in control, you'd be calm, you'd have control over your emotional reactions to stress. The other end of the spectrum is that your idle is way too low and that you have a hard time even getting yourself going. You're really tired, really fatigued, lay on the couch a lot, is like super, super low vagal tone here. So coming back over to that handout, I wanted to just kind of read this part here to you guys about vagal tone. So healthy vagal tone is indicated by a slight increase of heart rate when you inhale and a decrease of heart rate when you exhale. Deep diaphragmatic breathing with a long, slow exhale is key to stimulating the vagus nerve and slowing heart rate and blood pressure, especially in times of anxiety. A higher vagal tone index is linked to physical and psychological well-being. A low vagal tone index is linked to inflammation, negative moods, loneliness, and heart attacks. So you can improve your vagal tone over your life through things that stimulate your vagus nerve. So it's a nerve that runs down the spinal cord. It runs down the back of the throat. When you hum, you find a really deep, low hum like this. It vibrates your vocal cords and it massages that vagus nerve. When you take deep, slow breaths with your ujjayi breathing, like we do in yoga, and you sigh that breath out, That also stimulates the vagus nerve and improves vagal tone. Singing and whistling improve vagal tone. And that's why they feel so good. I wondered my whole life why I liked singing so much, and I only figured it out in yoga teacher training. I thought that was so interesting. So that's a really cool thing to know. So back to talking about the nervous system, like you're thinking of it like an idle in a car, and how you might be able to adjust that carburetor to bring the idle down or to bring the idle up. Yoga and breath work are like your screwdriver to adjust that carburetor to bring your idle down or up, depending on your own nervous system. So if you know that you are a really, really, really anxious, high-strung person, you can use breath work. You can slowly breathe to give the message to your brain that your body's safe, and you will slowly bring anxiety down. Okay, so moving forward into the next question, how does the nervous system relate to your hormones? So we've gotten into the nervous system a little, talked about your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system. So now I want to just briefly talk about your adrenal glands. So your adrenal glands, they're part of your endocrine system, and they sit on top of your kidneys. And they're in charge of outputting your cortisol and your adrenaline, your stress hormones. We mostly associate those stress hormones with just negative stuff like fat storage or an inability to lose weight, inflammation, things like that. But your body actually relies on small amounts of cortisol coursing through your blood on a regular basis to maintain your circadian rhythm and to protect your sodium-potassium balance. So here's the thing with the adrenals. I'm going to switch directions just for a minute. Share my screen again. Come over here to this chapter about the adrenal glands. So your adrenal glands are really, really, really important. Not only do they create cortisol and adrenaline, but they do all these other things as well that I'm going to go into. So like I explained, they protect your potassium and sodium balance within your cells. This is your body's ability to stay or be hydrated. The middle layer of your adrenal glands actually creates your cortisol. You need cortisol in order to maintain a balanced circadian rhythm, but not only that, this one's really, really, really important. Pay attention. You need your cortisol production to be on point in order to mobilize stored fats, proteins, and carbs from your cells when you need them for fuel. So we all think about, well, if I'm not eating, or if I'm fasting, or if I restrict my calories, then my body is going to start to burn my fat for fuel, right? Well, that's not going to happen if your adrenal glands are under functioning because of too much stress. So we'll get to that. And then the innermost layer of your adrenal glands actually creates the precursor to your reproductive hormones, estrogen and testosterone. 90% of our testosterone, which we need, is manufactured from DHEA in this part of the adrenals. So you need to have this DHEA in order to make your testosterone so that you can maintain muscle mass and so that you can burn fat. Mute your, oh, I got it. Hi, Sarah, I'm glad you're able to join us. Okay, so basically you need your adrenal glands to be functioning well in order to build muscle, burn fat, support your skeleton, support your energy, and safeguard your mental health and cognitive function as you age. So here's the thing about your adrenal glands. If you are in a constant level of fight or flight, if you are like chronically creating these stress hormones day in and day out. You're creating excess amounts of cortisol and excess amounts of adrenaline. What happens is the adrenals wear out. We've all heard of adrenal fatigue. What adrenal fatigue actually is when you've been creating levels of cortisol and adrenaline high enough for a long enough amount of time that those adrenal glands lose their ability to create the proper amounts of hormones to keep up. And so they slow down function, and all of those things that I just told you that the adrenal glands do start to slow down. When your adrenals become exhausted, you lose your ability to stay hydrated, and you slowly lose your ability to use stored fat for fuel. And then you also slowly make less and less and less estrogen and testosterone, which are absolutely crucial hormones for your longevity and for your aging as you move towards your menopause. So reproductive health is going to be a huge indicator of your post-reproductive health and longevity. And so now this is kind of how nervous system health and trauma can tie in with hormone balance. Because if your nervous system is so overly active that you're in a constant level of low level of state of fight or flight, then you're also going to be having a constant chronic output of your adrenaline and cortisol, which is over time going to exhaust your adrenal glands. And then everything's going to slow down. When your adrenal glands are exhausted, liver function slows down, detoxification slows down. Like I already said, your ability to heal, repair, thrive, all of that slows down. And so then at that point, hormonal imbalance will ensue because the adrenals are tired and the liver is under functioning. And just a really quick note that I'll throw out there about the liver is that your liver is in charge of converting hormones from fat soluble to water soluble so that you can actually eliminate them from the body via a bowel movement. So again, one more time, when your body creates a hormone, whether it's estrogen, cortisol, adrenaline, testosterone, that hormone does its job, and then it's meant to leave the body. It's supposed to exit the body with your bowel movement. That falls on the liver. So when the adrenals are tired, the liver slows down, and then waste starts to build up and get backed up like too many cars on a freeway inside of your body. And then you have a vicious cycle where the liver can't keep up with clearing out waste. And on top of that, the adrenal glands are under functioning. And it turns into this vicious cycle that usually lands people eventually in a medical office and needing some level of a prescription to help them out. And so by kind of getting to these systems, you cut right to the root of where most inflammation and most imbalance starts. So one more thing I'm going to share about the adrenals. So I talked about the 3 levels of the adrenals, and now this handout here actually kind of shows you what adrenal fatigue feels like in the body. So I'll zoom in a little bit here and you can see these symptoms. These symptoms are what adrenal fatigue might manifest as in your body. So just take a moment, scan that over. You can take a picture if you want. So as you're reading that over, what you can kind of see here is that tired adrenals or exhausted adrenals really make everything tired. Everything in the body kind of like slows down and under functions because your adrenal glands are like your little powerhouse of where so much comes from. So this is what adrenal fatigue might look like in the body. So now I'm going to kind of move forward. Okay, so real quick first, I just want to reiterate. If you're in a chronic state of fight or flight, or if you have a lot of trauma or low vagal tone, this can lead to chronic adrenal response. It can lead to a chronic cortisol and adrenaline output, which can then lead to low reproductive hormone production, which leads to hormonal imbalance. So with all the women that I've worked with, which is privately more than 60 at this point, I am 100% convinced that the number one thing in our society that's contributing to hormonal imbalance is stress. That doesn't mean that food isn't contributing, it is. And that doesn't mean that other things aren't contributing. But I feel like the number one thing that women are having the hardest time getting under control to allow their bodies to rest and heal is stress. So that's why that's what we're talking about tonight, because it feels like the most important thing to me. When our body isn't stressed, we can tolerate so much more in diet and little blood sugar mishaps or whatever it may be. Whereas you could have a completely perfect organic diet, but if your body was super stressed all the time, you'd probably still get inflammation and disease. So what other factors cause stress that will lead to chronic cortisol and adrenaline output or chronic fight or flight mode? So third question, getting into that one, what other factors are going to contribute to this hormonal imbalance caused by stress? Okay, number one, most of you have all heard it from me at this point, but mismanaged blood sugar. As women, and especially when we're in our reproductive years, every single month your body believes you could potentially be pregnant. Meaning, if you go months and years on end doing intermittent fasting and cutting out carbs or restricting calories by the hundreds, it's going to be stressful to your body, and your body's going to have a chronic low level cortisol output. One of the most simple things you can do to support your stress response as a woman in her reproductive years is to eat regular meals 80 to 90% of the time. Breakfast in the morning, lunch a few hours later, and a dinner that's not super late at night. You want to eat your food to fuel you for what you're doing. Eat when you're busy. Don't skip meals all day because it's convenient and then have a huge dinner and binge in the evening at the time of day when your metabolism and digestion are the slowest. It doesn't make sense for human biology, and it's a stressor. Our body wants fuel while we're working. While you're burning fuel, your body wants fuel. If there's no fuel to burn while you're working, you're going to start creating stress hormones so that you have energy to keep going. Another factor that's going to lead to chronic fight or flight or cortisol output is excess caffeine. If you're having tons and tons of caffeine every day, that little boost of energy that you get is actually because it increases your blood pressure, your heart rate, and causes your adrenals to excrete extra cortisol and adrenaline. I drink a cup of coffee in the morning, but I'm just encouraging myself and other women to stick to like 1 or 2 normal cups of coffee if you love coffee, rather than drinking 20-ounce cold brews on an empty stomach twice a day and thinking that that's giving you energy, because it's not. And then this is a big one, a huge one for women that's causing chronic cortisol output and chronic stress is not syncing with your cycle. And so I know that that's a complicated thing to say, and there's a lot to it. I'll say there's so many avenues to learn a little bit more about your cycle as a woman. You could work with me. I have a program where I help women and walk them through understanding like what their body does on a monthly basis. Or you could buy one of Alisa Vitti's books, Woman Code or In the Flow. She teaches about those. Or you could just scour Instagram. There are hundreds of Instagram accounts similar to mine where women are teaching about the 4 phases of the cycle and how to understand those better to honor your biology. The simplest thing I could say about that is, for example, when you're on your period, all of your reproductive hormones take a baseline, they come down, and you don't have reproductive hormones to contribute to muscle mass and fat burning. So if you do a high intensity interval training while you're on your period, you're probably going to have fat storage and muscle wasting. It's not healthy for you. Whereas when you're ovulating on the other end of the spectrum, this is the time of the month that you're making your peak amounts of estrogen and testosterone. And it's a time of the month that you'll recover well and you will make gains by working out hard. So learning about the phases of your cycle so that you're not putting extra stress on your body when it's not necessary. Let me check this chat box real quick. Cool. So Carly put an Instagram account in the chat box. That's a really good one to follow for the 4 phases of the cycle. I know that there's a lot of accounts that will put a lot of images, like images and word, little content images that just kind of are like quick, easy, little digestible tidbits that you can read about to keep better understanding these things. When we as women show up on an everyday basis and we try to be just as productive every single day as we were the last day, and we never give ourselves room for the natural ebbs and flows in our cycle, it is received as very stressful to the woman's body. We are biologically a little bit different from men, and we do require a little bit more grace and a little bit more rest when it comes to how hard we push all month long. So I encourage you to listen to your energy and to honor your body when you're getting close to your period and when you're having your period. It's okay to rest. Other factors that contribute to this chronic stress, chronic fight or flight, sluggish liver, or slow detoxification. Like I was saying earlier, you can have this little vicious cycle where your adrenals become exhausted and then your liver function slows down, and then it bounces back and forth. And then the slowed down liver function stresses the adrenals even further, which even further taxes the liver, and so on and so on. Lack of movement can be an underlying stressor that's going to lead to chronic fight or flight mode, especially because tension can become stuck and fluid can become stagnant. So detoxification will slow down if you're not moving. Here's a huge one that causes constant and chronic low-level stress for women is living outside of your purpose or truth, or not being expressive of your truth and not feeling heard or seen in your own truth and what's in alignment for you. And right hand in hand with that would be not having boundaries. I work with a lot of women, and these are the things that hold most of the women back that I talk to from their fullest health, is doing so much, doing everything for everyone, being so kind to all the people that you end up being the one left on the back burner. Okay. And then our last question that I'm going to answer. So what is a somatic practice, and how can a somatic practice help to heal or rewire trauma? So energy has now been proven. Science has proven at this point that energy cannot be destroyed. It can be moved or it can be transformed, but when energy exists, it cannot be destroyed. That's what science is proving. That's like a thing that's being talked about right now. Let me write this down really quick. I have a thought. I want to make sure I don't forget. So if energy cannot be destroyed, but it can be transformed or moved, then let's think about what that means for our body and for our emotions. So going back to if you have a close call in traffic and you almost get into a car crash, that feeling in your body, what could you describe it as other than a bunch of energy? Like if you feel like you're shaking or your stomach tightens, or you feel like a buzzing, you're so alert and on high red alert all of a sudden, that is energy that is being created in your body. So then that's kind of why we get the urge to shake or to cry or to puke or to punch something or to yell, is because doing those things moves the energy somewhere. All of that energy in your body wants to go somewhere. And so when you have the urge to yell or to run or to do some of those physical things, what it's doing is it's transferring the energy that you feel in your body. So what happens then if you have a traumatic experience and for whatever reason, you don't feel safe to express what you're feeling? So you clam up and you pretend like everything's okay. You put on a face so that nobody can tell what happened. And you try to just like relax your body so it doesn't look like you're feeling all of that energy in the body. Where does that energy go if that's your response? That's kind of the question here. And that's where science is beginning to 100% prove that practices that connect the mind and the body, like yoga, or like Tai Chi or like Qigong, can be so healing for the nervous system and do even have the capacity to rewire your nervous system so that your nervous system can learn how to react better to stress. So somatics, I just did a little Google search of somatics. Somatics describes any practice that uses the mind-body connection to help you survey your internal self and listen to signals your body sends about areas of pain, discomfort, or imbalance. So we've all probably heard that, some people will be in a pigeon pose in yoga, and then at the very end feel really emotional and maybe cry or experience a lot of emotions. So the idea with what I'm talking about is that if you've experienced trauma in your life, whether it was abuse as a child or something a little bit milder that you might not even think of as trauma, like you had a really, really great emotional need, and when you expressed it to your caregivers, they didn't see you, or they didn't hear you, or they didn't give space to what you were saying. These types of things shape the nervous system. And then it's kind of like why I say that when you start a yoga practice, it's like unkinking a hose. It's like a hose with a bunch of kinks in it, because you start waking up and moving around all of the energy that has been stored in your body through your nervous system, unprocessed emotions, unexpressed traumas, or feelings and memories that you haven't been able to, basically have the reaction that was real for you. It gets stuck. It gets stuck in your tissues. Your issues are in your tissues. It's very true. And so when you hold long, deep stretches in your hips or in your shoulders, or when you work through tension and you increase your back flexibility, you are not only becoming more flexible in your body, you are literally becoming more flexible in your nervous system. The other aspect of that you have to think about is, aside from all the trauma and aside from anything that's happened wrong in your life, when you come to a yoga class or when you do a mind-body practice and you become challenged, like your yoga teacher says to you, okay, you're going to come into plank and you're going to hold plank for 2 minutes. And now you're going to try to keep your face really calm and you're going to try to focus on your breathing. That challenge is going to trigger your nervous system, without a doubt. It's going to trigger most people's nervous systems because you are being asked to do something that's physically uncomfortable and to stay in it and to try to stay calm through it for the whole time. But when you choose to do it, when you choose to stay in the plank, and not only that, you choose to focus your breath and you choose to slow down your breathing and you choose to take long exhales, you tone your vagus nerve while you're holding a challenging pose. These are the moments when you are actually rewiring the way that your nervous system is triggered. And the way that it's rewired for the long run is by showing up consistently and going through these things over and over again. So one more thing before I kind of wrap up this whole conversation for the night is just to remind you guys that we also all know that it's been proven at this point that stress causes inflammation, and that low-level inflammation is your number one starting point for disease. It opens the door for disease. So exactly in the opposite direction, when you are in a state of healing, of relaxation, and you are in a state of ease, and you are in a state of joy or pleasure, this is when your nervous system is in your rest and repair state. This is how you turn healing on. So everything that I've talked about from the, oh, I just totally lost it. I do this every time I do a free workshop. I'm just talking and then it leaves. From the adrenal fatigue. So if you have adrenal fatigue and your adrenal glands are exhausted from this excessive cortisol output, the way that you heal that is through coming into a parasympathetic nervous system state where you're in a state of rest and digest. And so the key to healing, the key to getting your body into a state of healing is by getting your body to stress less on a consistent and regular basis. And how do we do that if we can't necessarily change our job today, or our kids are going to be kids for another 10 years and that's not going to be something that changes, or we're going to continue to work 5 days a week, whatever it may be? How do you do that? It's important to bring in practices, to include practices into your life that continuously remind your body and reteach your body that it knows how to come into a parasympathetic nervous system state. You have to remind your body that you don't always have to be in a state of stress. And having a yoga practice or another mind-body practice, like I said, Tai Chi or Qigong, regularly, like a few times a week, and breathing practices where you work on that deep diaphragmatic breathing and you practice slow exhales on a daily basis. These things consistently bring your nervous system back to calm where you can heal. And once you can start healing, then you can start experiencing the things that you really want with your goals. Weight loss, losing symptoms, having more energy from day to day, having less cravings, whatever it is, all of that stuff comes when your body is in a state of healing. And in order to be in a state of healing, your body has to be able to relax. That's kind of the whole message of this workshop. And I would like to say, before I turn it over to you guys and offer up for questions, that everything I've talked about is just scratching the surface tonight. And that when I do my 6-month program with clients, I share resources every single session that support these things I'm talking about, and that also really teach you thoroughly about these things so that you feel confident in understanding how your body works and how to incorporate habits into your everyday life to support being in a healthy state of healing, where your adrenals are functioning well and where your nervous system feels calm and where you live your life according to ease and pleasure rather than a constant state of productivity and stress and control, perfection, things like that. So it's kind of, that's the work I do. And if you have more questions about how do I keep my blood sugar stable, how do I support my liver, what exactly does it look like to try to stress less, how do I manage my daily stressors, just know that that's my area of expertise when I do one-on-one private work with women over the course of 6 months. I kind of help women to get into what this all looks like in their own bio-individual, unique life, day-to-day, with kids, work, and all the things, because life is messy. So that's kind of it. I feel like it's so scratching the surface. There's so much that's left to be said, but do you guys have any questions about the stuff that I'm talking about?
I didn't get to write it down, I don't think, but the vagus nerve, so the low and the high, what's the high one again?
So let me share my screen and come back over to this handout right here. So healthy vagal tone, which would be high vagal tone.
Oh, healthy, okay.
Yeah, so that's good vagal tone, would be healthy or high vagal tone. And this is when your vagus nerve is toned. And when you do have control over your emotional reactions, when you do have a good handle on how to respond when you're faced with a stressor. It's like, can you stay calm in the face of high pressure? Basically is going to kind of determine your vagal tone. And then low vagal tone or unhealthy or slow vagal tone would be if you're more of an anxious or easily triggered person. Do you guys have any other questions? There's no bad questions here. Think about it more while I'm talking. If you come up with something, let me know before we get off the call. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my 6-month pricing. So I am now offering group programs, 6-month group programs. They're not always available. My goal is going to be 2 groups per year. So I have 1 group going now. It's the first group that I've ever done, and it's going really well. I'm really enjoying it, and so are the women who are in it. And one of them is here tonight even. So that's a good indicator that it's going well. She wanted to listen to this free workshop as well. And the price of that group coaching program. So my next group coaching program is going to be in June is when I'm going to begin. So end of June, I'm going to begin another group. And the cost of that group coaching program is going to be $1,000 per person. And I usually give my clients the option to split that price up into either 6, 9, or 12 monthly payments. And my private group group coaching program is a sliding scale. I offer a sliding scale to local clients only. So I don't offer a sliding scale remotely or when I'm doing my program virtually. And it's just simply because I know the area, and I've been pitching my prices to people in this area for a while, and I've worked with a professional business coach myself to kind of help me feel like my prices are fair and accessible. So the sliding scale, the bottom of the sliding scale for my private 6-month program is $1,596. And the top of my sliding scale for my private 6-month program is $2,496. And the way that that works with the sliding scale, and what I talk to my clients about, is I give them a little self-assessment tool. And it kind of goes over like, if you have money in savings and you can afford to have, like Netflix for subscriptions, and maybe you go tanning or you get other cosmetic things, then that top price is probably what's right for you. I don't encourage anyone. I think that it's a luxury business to pay me at the moment because it's not something that can be covered by insurance at the moment, but I don't encourage people to try to make that payment if they're not doing well with finances. So I think that if you have money in savings, but then you maybe don't have as much extra money to be putting towards your monthly subscriptions or food deliveries or getting your eyebrows done or whatever it may be, then that lower price point would be for you. But the sliding scale is something that I work out individually with each client. $2,496 is the true cost of my program. And I work with women who feel that that's not accessible to them to choose a sliding scale price. That's kind of the way that that works. And then I also have the group coaching program option, which is my lowest coaching option price currently. And with the private group or the private program, I also give the option to divide that into 6, 9, or 12 monthly payments. So whoever, if anybody wins this drawing tonight and is interested in winning half off of the 6-month program, it would be half off of that full price, $2,496. So the program price for a private coaching program at half off would be $1,248. So hopefully that all makes sense. And if you have any questions about those numbers, or if you need me to repeat any of that, let me know. Of course, this is recorded and you can go and look back as well. And then I was going to do a drawing, but it doesn't really seem like that's necessary because we only have one person who has entered their name tonight. So Stephanie, if you are interested in having half off of a 6-month program, you are the one who's entered your name into that drawing tonight. And it's just redeemable within 6 months of this date. So you have time to think that over now that you kind of have that price and that number in your mind, and what that would look like. What that looks like is 12 private sessions. They're bi-weekly over the course of 6 months, and within a program that's structured to teach you in depth about a lot of the things we talked about tonight: your blood sugar, adrenals, organs of elimination, and then how to put that all together to learn about the 4 phases of your cycle and run your business based off of your cycle, exercise based on your cycle, all that good stuff. So just reach out to me privately if that's something that interests you. And do you guys have any other questions for me tonight? Did anybody learn anything new? Does anyone want to share with me what was the most interesting thing that came up tonight, or like an aha moment, something you've never considered, or a lens you haven't looked at these things through?
I will say mine would be when you talked about when we're doing yoga and you're in a position and you're like stressed or you're trying to stay calm, that like brings out your nervous system. That definitely resonated with me because today I experienced that in your strong class. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So, yeah, that was like mind blown when you said that. So,
Okay, good. Did you get a little mad at me in yoga?
no, I just had to definitely like slow down and get on my knees a couple times. So, yeah.
Yeah, yep. Well, you did a good job. You were very strong. I would never have known. All right, ladies. Well, thank you guys so much for coming tonight and taking the time out of your evening to show up and listen to this. I hope that you found something in here to be valuable. You guys can feel free to reach out to me if any questions come up from this free workshop, and it is recorded. So you'll see access to the recording tomorrow in your email if you want to come back and look through this again. But I hope you guys all have a really good rest of your night. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you guys all later.
Bye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.